Hey guys, this is Christian from linkintuitive.com, and in this video I'd like to talk to you about Cantonese versus Finnish. Which one is the hardest language? Now, Cantonese and Finnish are considered two of the world's most difficult languages to learn, and since I've learned both of them at the same time, then naturally a question that I often get is, well, which one of these is actually the hardest to learn? So I'd like to talk to you about that in this video, and if you'd like to know some of the methods that I've used and how to learn a language without pulling your hair out or draining your soul, then I've made a free language guide that you can download. So I'll just put a link to that in the description, and you can just go ahead and grab that. But yeah, so Cantonese and Finnish. I find these languages very interesting to compare because I've always felt like they are each other's opposites. So what I mean by that is Cantonese, like everything that is difficult with Cantonese is easy in Finnish, and everything that's difficult in Finnish is quite easy in Cantonese. So like I said, they're each other's opposites in so many ways. That's why it was really interesting to learn them both at the same time. Now, the word hard, this is a word that I don't personally like to use very much because I feel like it often conjures up images of like something that's really like you're sitting there sweating trying to learn a language, or you're trying to like forcibly learn this language and get it inside of you. And I think there's a way more relaxed and way more natural way to learn languages. It doesn't have to be like that. So I don't really like to use the word hard, but for the purpose of this video, when we're talking about hard here, what I'm going to be talking about is which one actually takes the longest time to learn. So let's start with Finnish. Now, Finnish is, like at all of Finnish people, there's this joke going around that's like, well, what's your superpower? Mine is speaking Finnish. And it's quite funny. And Finnish is a challenging language because it's very different from other languages. The only languages that it kind of has any resemblance with would be like Estonian, and I guess Hungarian in a way, grammar-wise. So there are a couple of things that makes Finnish challenging. Pretty much the main one is going to be the grammar. Just the way the language behaves is different than other languages. You have all these endings that determines where and to who you're talking, and just the way the language behaves, it constantly changes depending on what it is that you want to say. So that makes Finnish challenging because you have to get used to that. Like, I never studied grammar intentionally, but you have to get used to this, and you can get used to this naturally, of course, with a lot of input, which is how I've done it. So it just takes time to get used to how the language behaves and how to use that. And the second thing is the speaking actually is challenging because of the grammar. Because it's like this, you have to navigate through all of these things when you're speaking to make sentences that make sense to people. So that takes quite a bit of time to do. Now, the good news is that Finnish is very, very logical. Like all these grammar rules, they are very consistent, and if you just learn kind of certain things, how it functions, you can just apply it to everything else. So that's the good news. And also it has a very consistent writing system. So if you know how to write a word, you're gonna know how it's pronounced. And if you know how a word is pronounced, you're gonna know how to write it. So that makes it very easy. Now, the words are very long, so in the beginning it can feel like, oh my gosh, this is like overwhelming. But a lot of it is just like compound words, like 2, 3, 4 words that are with the endings that are just being compounded together to form one word. So reading, except when you get used to how long the words are, is quite easy in Finnish. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what's challenging in Finnish. I don't find the pronunciation very challenging. They have very hard like rolling R's, which we do have in Swedish too. So that might take a little bit of time for you to get used to if you're not used to that in your own language. And by the way, when I'm talking about these two languages right now, it's from the perspective of if English is your mother tongue, then of course, if you are Estonian, then it's going to be easier to learn Finnish. Or if you already speak Mandarin, it's going to be way easier to learn Cantonese. So then it doesn't really apply. But if you're an English speaker, or if you would be like Norwegian, Italian, French, like I pretty much think this is gonna apply because those kind of are very close languages. So now, Cantonese. What makes Cantonese challenging? So I already told you that what makes Finnish challenging is the grammar. Now this is the easiest part in Chinese because you never conjugate anything. You just get used to the word order, and then boom, you can just like make these sentences very easily. So, and the word order is very similar to English. So that makes it very easy. What makes Cantonese challenging, what it comes down to for me, is two things. It's reading and writing and listening comprehension. Now, let's start with the reading and writing. Obviously, you need to learn the characters. There's a lot of them, and that takes time. And not only do you need to learn what all these characters mean, you also need to learn how they're pronounced. So you kind of got two things wrapped up in that, because it doesn't say like how something is going to be pronounced. Like once you've learned quite a bit, you can kind of guess sometimes based on the characters how things are going to be pronounced. But in general, you don't know. You just have to learn for every single character. And in the case of Cantonese, it's not a language that's written a whole lot. So then you need to learn how they write things in Mandarin and just realize, okay, instead of this word in Cantonese and Mandarin, they're going to use this. Because a lot of subtitles and books and things like that are going to be written in Mandarin. Still, it's like, I would say probably 70-80% are still the same. So there's a lot of overlap there, but still, it's definitely a challenging thing. Number two is going to be listening comprehension. This is something I found very challenging because Chinese people speak very fast. The words are very short. So you don't really have that much time for your mind to be able to grasp the words and its meaning, and it just takes a lot of practice, something you have to really get used to. Now if you contrast that to Finnish, then I have not done a whole lot of listening comprehension. I've done mostly reading because I find that it's not very difficult to understand Finnish. The words are a lot longer, people speak slower, you just have more time for your brain to process it and pick up what the language actually means. So listening comprehension, not a big deal in my opinion in Finnish. So those are the two things that are challenging with Cantonese. Now what's easy is speaking, actually. You might be surprised by this, but I didn't find speaking to be that challenging. Like once you get your head around the tones, a lot of people say the tones are very challenging. I didn't think they're very challenging. It takes a couple months to get used to it, and after that, in my opinion, no problem. So, and since nothing is conjugated, if you just know the words, you can just like make sentences together. It's also a very flexible language. You can really like kind of make up your own sentences. You know, it's kind of hard to go wrong with Cantonese. Although of course there's some more natural ways to say things. So that makes Cantonese easier. So now, which one of these is the most challenging one? I would say without a doubt is going to be Cantonese. And it's just because of the writing system and the listening comprehension. It just takes way longer, probably even close to twice as long as Finnish for me. So I've learned Cantonese longer, of course, but my reading is a lot better in Finnish, naturally, because it takes a lot longer to learn to read the characters. So yeah, there you go. Have you learned any of these languages? Have you learned a hard language? Which do you find the most challenging language for you to learn? I would love to hear that in the comments, and let me know your thoughts on this topic, and click the subscribe button, and you'll see whenever I come out with a new video. So thanks you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.